This is Jets at Noon on 680 CJOB.
Well, it's that, obviously it's that time of the year, right? It's everyone's talking about, ways to improve their team or different things like that. Certainly, as an organization, we're going to listen. Everyone saw Helly's, press conference at the end of the year. He was passionate. Certainly, in our exit meetings, we had, some frank conversations as well. But, again, what happens in those meetings will, certainly stay private. But at the end of the day, we both chose to, sign a 7-year, extension. He gave up some UFA years. We had the desire to take a player into his high 30s, and there's risk on both sides. So, again, as an organization, it's incumbent upon me to listen. And that's, kind of what I've done up until this point. Well, I think we're living in different times here right now. I think you've seen, different things, in the marketplaces and other marketplaces. Again, in our conversations, we had lots of discussions. I think this situation is probably different than, other situations where players, potentially moving forward expressed their desire that they weren't, going to sign. I think teams had their opportunities to make their own decisions there. In this situation here, we have a contract for 5 years, and that's the reality of the business world.
That is Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff from earlier today. In his pre-NHL draft media availability, didn't talk so much about the draft as we did about, guess who? Connor Hellebuyck, as we welcome you to another edition of Jets at Noon for Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, and at washmethod.com. Kelly Moore and Jim Toth coming to you live from the Boston Pizza Studio for gourmet pizza and pasta. Bring the team to Boston Pizza. And, Jim, anything in those words there from Kevin Cheveldayoff? Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet, our colleague, also, those were questions, by the way, asked by Ken Wiebe and Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. And Sean Reynolds also asked Kevin Cheveldayoff about Connor Hellebuyck, and Kevin just responded with, well, clearly I haven't heard anything that I've liked yet. So we know Connor Hellebuyck is being discussed around the National Hockey League. We don't know if he's asked the club to be traded, rather. And clearly no one has come up with the magic bullet to convince Kevin Cheveldayoff that he should pull the trigger.
Yeah, and as I've been saying for a while now, there's absolutely zero pressure on Kevin Cheveldayoff to make this deal. And what I really like of what he said there, Kelly, is we both agreed 7-year contract.
Right, with 5 left.
And there's 5 years left on it. And that's the end of the day, the business. And that's what I think he's telling other GMs. It's just my assumption, but I don't have to do this. If you want him, this is the price. And I stand by that. I think the same with Dylan Larkin in Detroit and stuff. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll have a look at it. We're going to try and improve the team. And now that'll change if he, asks out. But Kevin Cheveldayoff has been backed in the corner before, and he's come out gloriously. And I think that's what's going to happen here, Kelly. I still don't think, in my opinion, unless you can address 2 of the 3 glaring holes on this roster, a deal's there. But if somebody knocks your socks off, Kevin Cheveldayoff will pull the trigger. And if nobody does, I will see you at training camp, Connor.
All right. We are going to select our winner of the Boston Pizza Hotline Call of the Week. And, of course, watch Canada make soccer history at Boston Pizza. Score the new MVP platter when you watch the big games on the big screens at BP. And, of course, a lot of people will be glued to their tellies. 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon when Canada plays South Africa. It is a free-for-all Friday.
Free-for-all!
Yeah, it'll be truncated somewhat, if I can use that terminology, because we have Derek Neumeier of McKeen's joining us. He's the chief Western scout for McKeen's. He's joining us live from Buffalo at the bottom of the hour. But Andy, you're our first caller on Free-for-All Friday, Jets at Noon. Go, man, go.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. Happy Friday and free-for-all. It's a pretty involved day today with the draft and everything around Helly. I just want to say, look, I know it's all rumors and stuff, but if the rumors are true that Buffalo is offering up the 4th-round draft pick and a goalie and a potential forward, I mean, it's going to take several moves for the Jets to improve their roster. Like, you take these drafts. This is a really fantastic top 10 draft, and losing Helly would be seismic for this franchise. But I think there would be, it'd be silly not to really seriously look at that offer, even with this trade. And then you could take the draft picks and parlay it into another trade. It's going to take several moves to improve this roster. So if these offers are accurate, and I'm not sure, I know he's under contract for 5 more years, but we don't know that he didn't ask to be traded either.
No, we don't. No,
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, Andy, is I don't know as much that they're rumors as it's just a lot of us spitballing on what might be offered for Connor Hellebuyck. So I would just say that in terms of how you're looking at it, I don't know if Buffalo said that. That's just a lot of people thinking because neither one of the clubs are talking.
Absolutely. And, I realize, he's a franchise player, but again, we have to look at the future as well. And it's going to take several trades, I think, and moves and signings to improve this roster. And again, like you said earlier this week, 19 of 23 roster spots are spoken for.
Right.
So there has to be some movement. And Jim has said earlier this year, and I agree with him, this team needs to be improved this offseason. This is the offseason to do it. And just to avoid these draft picks or to not make these moves during the draft day, to wait later in the summer, I think this is the draft to take advantage of these offers if they are true. So anyway, have a great Friday, guys, and it's an interesting day.
Yeah,
way
thanks,
to
Andy.
kick us off, Andy.
Yeah.
That's a great call, by the way.
It's going to be exciting. Now, Murat Atesh, our great colleague, is put out, my understanding is that Buffalo's offer included the number 4th, a roster player, and a prospect, but Winnipeg is unwilling to include the number 8. This is what I mean about the home run.
Yeah.
If I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'm not giving you the 8th.
Yeah.
You want Connor Hellebuyck. The difference between 4th and 8th isn't as great as Connor Hellebuyck. It's just not right now.
No.
So if you want Connor Hellebuyck, you do not get the 8th back. I will go in this direction.
You maybe get your second-round pick in 2027 back.
Because, and I agree with Andy, because then you sit there, you get hopefully a goalie back, hopefully a forward back, and you get both picks. And then you can use one of those picks to fix some of the other holes that you may have in your lineup. But I agree with Kevin Cheveldayoff, and that's what he's always done. He doesn't blink. If you want to Hellebuyck, I'm not giving you the 8th.
All right, Destry, hang on for 1 second here because we have this business we want to take care of. It is our Boston Pizza Hotline Call of the Week, and our winner is Grant.
Hey, Jets at Noon, Jim and guest host Paul Edmonds and rotating assistant hosts. This is Grant, and I have a bit of a take for you. What if the Florida Panthers just traded to get Brady Tkachuk to fill a hole that they're about to create by trading Esa Lindell to the Winnipeg Jets for Connor Hellebuyck? I know they didn't want to make that hole, but now that they've somewhat filled that hole, maybe they're a little more willing to do it, and maybe they are desperate to get Hellebuyck. Anyways, that's the hot take for Tuesday.
Woo!
Wow. Sizzling hot. Sizzling.
Yeah, way to go, Grant. And, of course, the Boston Pizza Hotline brought to you by who else? Boston Pizza, where you can watch Canada make soccer history and score the new MVP platter when you watch the big games on the big screens at BP. Yeah, Anton Lundell. And I know that's, I feel confident in correcting Grant on that. What do you think of that deal, Jim? Enough? Or the start of a deal? I
think the start of it, if they want to include him, then that's where I think it begins, and then you kind of fill it in from there. But it would have, and from what we've been told or heard or read, that's not part of what they're willing to give up, which from Florida's aspect, I don't blame them.
No, they I'll tell you, boy, that top 9 of Florida. Woo.
Yeah.
Okay, Destry, go ahead. You are on Jets at Noon.
Hey, I was just going to say, if they're going to trade Hellebuyck, trade them to Buffalo for UPL, Powers, and Darlene.
Sorry, what was that last one?
Darlene.
Oh, Darlene. Oh. Yeah. Trust me.
That's something I would accept, but I don't think they would offer that.
Yeah, but
and then trade away PL and Quintamelo because they're costing us way too much.
Okay, you know what, Destry? You know what's going to happen when you make that pitch to Jarmo Kekalainen? You know what the reaction's going to be? Click.
Yeah, they're not going to give up 2 top 4 D-men.
Yeah.
I think you stole that chair you're sitting on from my grandma's house in the 70s.
Who are you talking to, me or Jim?
Yeah. Yeah, the chair you're sitting on. I see it on the YouTube, and it looks like it's from my grandma's house in the 70s.
When I first saw that chair years ago, I thought that looks like wallpaper from my grandma's basement.
The chair incident?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great point, Destry.
I'm like a coach, Destry, okay? Like the furniture I'm given is the furniture I have to play with, okay? Get off Grandma's case.
Guys.
You too, Destry. Kelly Moore's the Lou Lamoriello of basements. He loves the wallpaper.
Yeah. Hey, Martin, go ahead. You're on Jets at Noon, and yes, you could take shots at the furniture as well.
Okay. Hi, Jim. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Martin.
Hey, what happened to the Jewish fellow? What happened to what's his name?
Cam moved on to another opportunity. Is there anything you want to talk about with the Jets, though, Martin, here before we go?
Yes, I do. Did you read Cathal Kelly's column from the Globe and Mail? He's a Torontonian.
No, I did not. So give us the Cole's Notes version really quick here.
Okay. Well, he's saying that American players on Canadian teams are defecting to American teams and Trump had something to do with it.
Okay, Martin. Yeah, that's been widely reported. That's not breaking news or anything else along that line. We thank you very much for calling in as we continue on here now on Jets at Noon at 204-780-6868. Daryl says, how about this as we play Would Ya? Would you trade Connor Hellebuyck to Toronto for the first overall pick and Anthony Stolarz?
No.
Okay, you had to think about it, though.
Yeah, because the first overall pick's Gavin McKenna, Anthony Stolarz. I think you need something else in that.
Yeah. Matthew Nyes, maybe.
Yeah.
Wayne says, here I am doing Connor Hellebuyck and Cole Perfetti for Kent Johnson, Ivan Provorov, and a first-round pick. I'm sorry, Wayne, but I don't like that deal at all.
No,
And I don't like it from the Winnipeg perspective, not from the Columbus perspective.
Yeah, I like what Columbus has. I like Ken Johnson. I just don't think he costs you Connor Hellebuyck. But here's what we're not thinking about, Kelly, is we've done a lot of Connor Hellebuyck for this, Connor Hellebuyck for that. I think you could package something up. I think you could definitely send like a Dylan DeMello or maybe a Cole Perfetti with Connor Hellebuyck and maybe get 3 or 4 assets back in that deal plus a pick. And that's the kind of thing. I think Connor Hellebuyck, if you're going to send him with another player, should garner you 5 assets. Yeah. I think if it's just Hellebuyck, you're probably going to get 3.
Dan says, if there's interest, do we take Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, the top 4 pick, and Peyton Krebs?
You're going to have a, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. But I definitely am not sending the 8th back. If I'm going to do this and you're going to trade your Hall of Fame goaltender who's got 5 years left at a really good rate, I'm not giving up the 8th pick. You're going to have to pay for it.
Right, yeah. Mike says if they did trade Hellebuyck to Buffalo, it needs to be for the 4th pick, Pekka Luukkonen, and Jack Quinn or Noah Ostlund.
No, I don't like that either.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. It's too much of a... The guys in the room, the team, don't care about the 4th overall pick. And what they do care about is what players are coming back.
And if you listen to Kevin Cheveldayoff closely this morning, you know that it's not going to be marginal players or maybe players that would be involved in this deal,
They
Jim.
did that with Isak Rosén.
Isak Rosén.
That's what they did with him. This is going to be more. I like Hellenius. I think he's a second-line center, and I think if you can get him, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in the 4th pick, I might pull the trigger on that.
We'll squeeze in a couple more texts here right after the break on Jets at Noon.
Jets at Noon on 680 CJOB.
All right. We have time to take a quick call here. Richard, you are on Jets at Noon.
Yeah, gentlemen, I really think that the reason why Ehlers left was because this club didn't properly evaluate the skills that he really had. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say that there's certainly validity to that. I don't know about the evaluation of the skills, but for sure Richard did not use him, and maybe that dovetails with what you said, in marquee opportunities as much as Nikolai would have liked to participate in them. Thanks for the call. Jim, quick comment from you on that?
Yeah, I think if there's something to be learned here, and I want to emphasize, I know that they liked Ehlers and they knew he was skilled and appreciated all he brought. I just think if there's something to be learned here, it's to use more players in different situations at certain times.
Yeah, that's a mistake you can't repeat for sure. And Alan says, look, Hellebuyck isn't wrong. The team needs to be better. But if he feels like the window doesn't match his timeline to win a cup, goodbye. Trade him. I only want players 100% committed to Winnipeg. Problem is, if he gets moved, Cheveldayoff just creates another massive hole to fill on top of the obvious 2-center slot. What's your take from Alan? Real quick, Jim, on that.
Yeah, I like the 2-center spot, and I think if they can get the fourth, and I like what you said yesterday, Kelly. Once the third pick is made, if Malholtra's there or Carroll's, I think they have
Carl's is the guy. I think Carl's would be the guy. Yeah,
I think Malholtra. I disagree. I think that if they can get that fourth pick and Caleb Malholtra's there, Manny Malholtra's son, I think you go that route and bring that center in this organization.
I owe you a lunch. Do you want to go double or nothing?
Sure,
on that?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
What do you want to go double?
Are we allowed to do that on the air?
If they get the fourth pick?
Yeah, well, if they were to get the fourth pick, I'd say they'd take Carl's. If Malhotra was available, you say they'd take Malhotra.
That's what I would
do. Yeah, it might wind up being a push anyway.
Double or nothing, and then maybe we just go for lunch and Bob's your uncle.
Chief Western Scout Derek Neumeier of McKeen's is going to help sort out what we know about the NHL Draft with 5.5 hours to go. Coming up next here on Jets at Noon.
Well, I think it's been an interesting time, obviously internally with the meetings that we've had and the different discussions that that have been had. There's lots of passion, for players, in this area, and we feel like there's an opportunity to get someone that can be really impactful, for the future of the franchise. But it's interesting to see, what's going on around as well, and the different people that are talking outside, and the names that appear on various different levels, throughout that top area of the draft. So, again, I think when you're in a situation like this where you do have a high pick, you just want to be fortunate enough to have players in that area that everybody is passionate about, and that seems to be the case.
Kevin Cheveldayoff, the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets from earlier today, talking about the number 8 overall pick and what he hopes to do with that later tonight in Buffalo, if it remains that way, because I think you have to put that caveat on just about everything connected to the National Hockey League right now. So we welcome you back to Jets at Noon from the Boston Pizza Studio for gourmet pizza and pasta. Bring the team to Boston Pizza. And, of course, Jets at Noon is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, and at washmethod.com. Kelly Moore, Jim Toth, and pleased to bring into the conversation from McKeen's. He's the chief West Scout. He's the assistant head scout. His name is Derek Neumeier. And Derek, just as Kevin Cheveldayoff was talking about what to do with the number 8 pick and all the names that are associated with it, I'll start the question this way. Has there been a year you can remember where after, whether it's the top 2 or the top 3, there are so many good players to choose from till you get to about the 10th or 11th or 12th pick?
Yeah, not really. I mean, it's been a while since I can remember this much depth and really parity throughout the top 10, really. I mean, there's just so many good options this year. The difference between the 2nd or 3rd overall pick is really not going to be that huge compared to the 7th or the 8th or the 9th. I mean, there's a real chance that in this draft, the player taken 8th overall or 9th overall could end up being the 2nd or 3rd best player to come out of this draft. I think those are very, very realistic possibilities. If you're a team like the Jets and you're picking 8th, obviously you want to pick higher as much as you can. It'd be better to pick 2 or 3 or 4, but I think the Jets are in a great spot because they're going to get a very, very high caliber player at 8th overall, regardless of who actually is still left when it comes time for their pick.
Okay, here comes the tough question for you, Derek. In your mock draft, who do you have the Jets taking 8th overall?
I could really see them being interested in a guy like Daxon Rudolph out of Prince Albert, or maybe someone like Keaton Verhoff playing for the University of North Dakota. Now, the caveat of this, of course, is, there's no guarantee that those players are going to be still available. Verhoff, there are apparently some teams higher in the draft that do like him or are interested in him. Apparently, Vancouver has interest in him. Rudolph, I've heard, as high as maybe New York as a team that's interested in him. So it's hard to say. But, looking realistically, just trying to make an educated guess about how the picks are going to go, I would say someone like Rudolph is probably your most realistic kind of option for the Jets at 8. I think the other defensemen will be gone before that. The forwards like Ivar Stenberg and Caleb Malhotra, they'll probably be gone. But I think Rudolph will still be there at 8th, and I think he'd be a great fit for the Jets. I mean, you're talking about a Western Canadian kid, a guy who was the number 1 defenseman this year for a very, very good Prince Albert team, a guy who scored at over a point per game pace. He's very confident with the puck, tons of upside offensively. Not the most polished defensive player right now, but a guy who is still 6'2" and, over 200 pounds. So he's got a frame that he can work with. He's maybe a little bit still undercooked in terms of his physical development. But, send this guy to the college level where he's going next year. Give him that extra time in the gym and the weight room. And, you're talking about a player who could be a very well-rounded, very special guy in, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
And so along those lines, Derek, it seems to be a draft that, like, as deep as it is in the top 10 to 12, teams will pick the position they need the most or feel they need the most. So we could literally see some guys fall that we thought would be top 4, things like that. Is that what you're kind of expecting here? Or do you think that most of the mock drafts, including yours, will play out the way it plays out? Or will teams go, you know what, we like this defenseman and we know that he's ranked 9th or whatever, we're going to take him at 3?
Yeah, it's very realistic. I mean, there's always that debate between do you draft for what your team needs in the prospect pipeline or do you draft for best player available? And sometimes it's really not clear who the best player available is. Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say, by some miracle, Gavin McKenna falls to 3rd overall. At that point, you could say pretty confidently that he's the best player available. But, if he goes at 1 and, the picks immediately after kind of go how you expect, by the time you get to, let's say, 5 or 6, there's not consensus as to who the best player available is in that sort of range. So if you're a team like, let's say, Calgary at 6, you've got 5 or 6 or maybe even more guys that you think are equal in terms of value, at that point, then you can go based off of need. If you need a center, maybe you go Viggo Bjork. If the Flames think they need another young defenseman, maybe they go for someone like Carson Karls. So you do kind of have to balance it both ways. I think in some regards there is an argument to be made at different points in the draft where there is a guy left who is, a tier above the rest of the pack and, he's the best player available. But if you've got a bunch of guys who are close and there's no definitive best player available, then by all means, I think it makes sense to, lean towards a guy that you think will be a good fit for your organization and fill some kind of hole.
Along those lines then, like we've heard reports that Buffalo's offered the 4th overall for Connor Hellebuyck here in Winnipeg. We don't know how that's going to play out. My colleague Kelly was saying yesterday he thinks that the Jets will wait to see the first 3 picks, and then if somebody's there that they like, may revisit with Buffalo. Where do you think Malhotra will go? And I ask that because I'm wondering if they do that in Vancouver or if they avoid it, which I think they should avoid it. But then again, he is a very young, dynamic player. Where do you think Vancouver pulls the trigger on Malhotra or goes a different route?
I think they would really like Malhotra. I mean, by the sounds of it, I think every team kind of likes Malhotra. Yeah. I mean, what's not to like, right?
Yeah,
you got
exactly.
a high-character kid, NHL bloodlines, two-way center with size and athleticism, leadership abilities. I mean, he's kind of the whole package as far as centers go. But it's a tough situation with Vancouver, right? Because, they just hired his dad to be their head coach. And, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Manny is such a high-character guy. I don't think it would be a problem for him. But, sometimes it's hard to follow in your father's footsteps, especially if your father is, a very well-respected former NHL player. And, maybe that would be kind of hard for Caleb. That might be a bit of like a a difficult spotlight, extra pressure, that kind of thing. Maybe that's some unwanted attention or maybe an extra distraction. So I could see the Canucks maybe wanting to avoid that situation and, let Caleb grow into his own person, be a little bit away from his dad, be able to carve his own path in a different market. So I think that would kind of make sense in that regard. And, at 3, the Canucks have a lot of good options. Maybe Stenberg is still there. Maybe Chase Reed is still there. So if they decide to, pass on Caleb just because they don't want that extra kind of like off-ice attention or potential distraction, they've got a lot of other great options that they could lean to, and I think they'd be pretty happy with them as well.
That's a dynamic part, Kelly, I'm wondering about. Like, do you want that pressure in that situation? And if Manny gets fired 3 years from now, or if they avoid it, or if they just embrace it and go, he's too good of a player. Yeah,
I loved Caleb's reaction to that yesterday in Buffalo. Pressure is a privilege. Derek Neumeier is the Assistant Director of Scouting and the head West Scout for McKeen's. Derek, just before I ask you one more question here, for anybody who wants to tap into the wonderful and great insight supplied by yourself and Brock Otten and the rest of the gang, where do they go to get that?
Yeah, I mean, the number one way is to subscribe to our website at McKeensHockey.com. We have our draft guide out right now. It's got 300 ranked players with profiles on all 300. So, we went really deep this year, just like we do every other year. But we also have various feature articles that we publish throughout the year. We do these big multimedia scouting reports on the top guys. We break down the main categories of their game, include a ton of video clips, really get into the nitty-gritty of it. And, this is the best team we've ever had at McKeen's. We've got scouts throughout North America. We've got scouts in various parts of Europe, guys who are in the rinks in all these different kinds of markets. So, we're really out there in the industry, and, I think this is the best draft guide we've ever put together. So you sign up to subscribe to McKeen's, you've got access to that and all the other fun goodies that we have on our website. So I'm pretty proud of the work we've done this year. I think it's our best list yet, and, I really hope a lot of people take the time to check it out.
Anybody who has followed or is certainly familiar with McKeen's would back that up. Just a couple of quick notes here. Toronto has traded for the pick, actually, sending goaltender Samuel Ersson, who they picked up last week from Philadelphia, for a 2027 fifth runner, Brett Kulak. Signing for 5 years with an average annual value of $4.5 million to remain a Colorado Avalanche. And of course, Colorado's cleared out a little bit of salary with Jack Drury and Ross Colton and Val Nichushkin. Derek, one final question for you here. I am the fantasy GM of the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to trade Connor Hellebuyck to Buffalo. I'm going to come out of it with the 4th overall pick. I am going to wait for the first 3 picks, but darn it, if I am able to do that deal, I'm taking the local kid, Carson Carls, out of Cypress River. Your response as the owner of the Winnipeg Jets, Derek, you'll say congratulations or no, and you're fired.
No, my answer would be congratulations and let's go. I mean, Carl's, I'm a huge fan of this kid. Super high character, just a workhorse defenseman. I mean, what he accomplished this year in Prince George was very, very remarkable, playing, sometimes upwards of being like half the game on the back end, top power play, top penalty kill. He scored it over a point per game pace this year. Very, very physical, one of the toughest defensemen in this draft class. And just by all accounts, a high character kid. People really like him as a person. They love the work ethic and the farm background. I mean, this is a defenseman who kind of has everything to his game. Could be future captain material. Like, I just have a lot of respect for him. He's maybe not the type of guy that shows up in the highlight reel all that often. Maybe won't be, an all-star or the kind of guy who, is one of the top scoring defensemen in the league. But he's just the type of guy that can be a real cornerstone piece. The guy you can build, your entire organization around, just as your leader and your best player on the back end. So, yeah, I mean, if the Jets were to make that kind of trade and walk away from this draft with Carls, I think they'd be absolutely thrilled about that.
It's a free-for-all Friday here, so we have a listener who's texted in and just wanted your thoughts on where you think Brett Liskey, a defenseman from Beausejour, Manitoba, and from the Everett Silvertips, might go. Is it first couple of rounds or later?
I think it's very realistic. Yeah, he had a really good end to his season with Everett in the playoffs. Their top pair for this season was budding superstar Landon DuPont and highly regarded defenseman named Terrence Smith. But Smith got hurt early on in the playoffs, and Liskey jumped into that top defense pairing with Dupont, and he looked great. Great skating defenseman, very smart two-way player. Just always seems to make the right kind of decision whenever he's on the ice. Maybe not the most dynamic guy, not as ideally big as you like on the back end, but just a really solid all-around player. I wouldn't be surprised for a guy of his, pedigree and his size and, the right shot ability and the skating ability. Like, overall, I think he's a pretty solid player. I could see him going as high as the second round.
Thank you.
Derek, thanks a bunch for this. We'll certainly talk about Brett Liskey in our draft special tonight. Doug Sinclair, the chief Manitoba scout for the Everett Silvertips, is going to join us as part of our coverage as well. We'll talk about some of the
Brett name.
Yeah, that's a great name. Derek, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have fun covering all the twists and turns tonight in Buffalo.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It'll be a day with a lot of coffee, and it'll be hard to pull myself away from my phone.
No kidding.
Yeah, bold and no cream, no sugar either. Okay. Derek Neumeier of McKeen's, who is their assistant director of scouting and their chief head, or their West head scout, rather. Great insight there.
Yeah, McKeen's is awesome, by the way.
They're fantastic.
Every time.
Come back and try to catch a couple more of your texts before we wrap up this free-for-all Friday. You know what, Forte? Unplug the phones. Let's see if we can take one or two more calls before we wrap it up here on Jets at Noon.
Jets at Noon on 680 CJOB.
All right, Francis, we are going to get to your call, which is in just under the wire. But you know what? Whether it's for the rest of today, tonight, while you're watching and listening to our draft coverage, or over the weekend, because you've been stewing about this for 24 hours, don't forget to call into the Boston Pizza hotline at 204-780-6800. And while you're at it, watch Canada make soccer history at Boston Pizza. Score the new MVP platter when you watch the big games on the big screens at BP. Jim Toth instructed me to take at least one more call. So, Francis, good on you. You get to vent your spleen here on Jets at Noon.
Hi. Jim Toth. I don't know if you remember, and I called. It was the day after Connor Hellebuyck got the Hart Trophy last year, and I said we should trade him. It was the perfect trade, and it's the only way we're really going to improve the team. And you guys literally cut me off and kicked me off the show because you said you wanted to hear none of it, and he was never going to be traded. Now, all you guys have been talking about the last 2 weeks about how to trade Connor Hellebuyck. I personally think it would be great to trade him, and I don't think we should try to overrate him too much and try to get too much for him. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to make a trade and fix three of the problems we have on our team. I think we're just going to have to be happy with getting a trade, maybe getting the 4th overall from Buffalo and one other 60-point guy. Be happy with that.
All right, Francis, thank you.
I do remember that, Francis. We didn't kick you off the show. We listened to you, and then we're moving on. But yeah, I still don't think they should trade him. I don't think you're going to win a trade. If there's a trade done, I will judge it and see if it knocked my socks off and why it was done. But and that's what I think is taking so long, or taking this. As Kevin Cheveldayoff said, nothing has prompted me to act, so I have not. And I'm sorry, Francis. I just think your take the day after he won the Hart Trophy as the best player in the National Hockey League was a little strong to trade that player. Much the same as I would say the day after Nikita Kucherov won it or Connor McDavid won it, to not trade that player. But fair enough. You think that's the best way to go, and I understand that, Francis. I appreciate you calling back in.
And Francis, I say this with great sincerity. I wish I had your vision, because I would have agreed. We wouldn't kick you off, but I would have disagreed with your take at that time as well. So you have great vision. I think, and again, I say this, I think you certainly need to share that with more people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Francis.
I'm not saying I would trade Nikita Kucherov. I just think with Connor Hellebuyck, I think you're better off having a good forward rather than a good goaltender in that. That's all I have to say.
Right on. Thanks, Francis.
Enjoy the draft tonight, Francis. Thanks for calling back in.
You bet. You were not kicking anybody off, but when you hear the music, Forte is kicking us off.
It's true.
We want to thank very much our erstwhile producer and everybody. A great week. Man, oh man, I'll tell you, just the engagement on this show is absolutely fabulous.
Big show tonight at 6.
Yeah, 6 to 9, Christian O'Mell, yours truly, will have all kinds of guests joining us for great analysis on the CJOB Sports Show Draft Special. Noah Fuchs is standing by with the 1 o'clock news, and then Jim Toth with the Jim Toth Show. Have a great weekend, and as we always like to say, thank you for making Jets at Noon part of your Friday.